Go ahead and start. Thank you. And I'm going to walk through this. It'll be quick, but it does provide a bit of a foundation. It provides where we have been in the last few days since the last plenary, and it raises some issues which we all can think about. In terms of setting an expectation, a foundation, the Ocean Best Practice team needed to put together a vision, and then how do we reach that? The vision is the future state, and it's a future where there are agreed and broadly adopted methods across ocean research, operations, and applications. And we do want to keep it for the whole value chain in that case. So how do we get there? The mission is to sustain an evolving system, the Ocean Best Practice system, that fosters collaboration, consensus building, and innovation. And it provides coordinated and global access to best practices and standards. And I think this is the one thing that I think we've done well, and we need to now work with you, the community, the two of you and many, many others, to ask how we can do it better, how we in fact can join in the collaboration. So let's talk about the particular areas that we're talking about. The workshop had a number of recurring themes as we read through the reports, as we sat in the working group sessions. And they came out in the Menti poll and in the co-digital polls, and we put them together. We looked at that and also asked, what is the priority? In some of the results of the polls reinforce what we're already doing, but some were new areas. And I think that's very, very good. We also took into account the working groups and their discussions as we began to look at those priorities. What we ended up with was interoperability, decision tree, outreach and communication training technology, convergence, intercomparison experiments, ethics, and the UN decade. About half or more of these are new to us, but they're not easy. These are complex issues. And let me take something that's probably the simpler of some of them, and that's the decision tree. We were noting in a number of the working groups that the concept of a decision tree was recommended. And we said to ourselves, what does that mean? Is it a decision tree that people outside use to solve application problems? Does Sargassum have a decision process that a manager can use? Or does it mean a decision tree within our ocean best practice of how one chooses a best practice to use? So these words have to be thought through, and in this case of decision tree, it's both and they'll be handled differently. I would leave you with words like convergence, ethics as very complex, and they're human factors as well as their technical factors. So we went and asked the working groups, can you give us the 3 top priority recommendations that you have? And they had many, and this was a hard job, and they did. And we were very, very pleased, and we can look at the details of this later. It's not my intent to have you read any of these, but make a couple of points. All of the working groups are included. The 3 are vertically, so this is the first priority that they mentioned. And they also provided us with an opportunity to see which of the categories I showed you in the last slide these refer to. So outreach and community building. Community here means it's the conversation not only of the ocean best practice system, but the community itself. And when we were done with all of that, we put together a program that we will address, and we don't have most of the people here now, but we will be engaging in a full panel discussion tomorrow in which we're looking at various factors in these areas: convergence, training, community development, things like that. And these will be the speakers for that. Finally, I wanted to make just some comments looking forward for your consideration and for our discussion now. Many of the ideas that we will be discussing here and tomorrow will be brought to the steering group in October in order to look at incorporation into the strategic plan. And I'll just say privately to the two of you who are, and colleagues, that this is a very serious statement, and we take the inputs seriously that we've been given from the workshop. We need to look at how the working groups will continue. And we're talking about offering and making available Slack channels, forums, other things. These are things we need to talk about. And maybe we can talk about this evening or today together. Creation of consulting groups. How do we get various activities to work with us? These could be ethics. There's certainly the early career ocean professionals. And they could be other subjects, indigenous populations and how we address those. For new areas, we're considering pilot demonstrations, and we've been talking with the Sargassum Working Group about a pilot for decision trees. So this is a hands-on experience that we'll use to understand the directions that these should go. And finally, we're looking for continued inputs in our development. So these are some of the things that the steering group is thinking about, and I'd like to just throw that open and on the table for the discussions that we can have now. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy, of course, to answer any questions.
Thanks for that, Jay. Would you mind popping up your slide again? Just so that people
Sure,
can see
of course.
that forward-looking. So,
Rachel, move your microphone to your mouth.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, just ask if you could pop up your slide again, Jay. That last one
I need to start
might help. Might help structure the discussion more. Or you know what? I can share as well. Are you going to stay, Jay?
Yeah, I'm staying. But
okay, so yeah, if you could.
Okay, that's fine.
You just share yours. So we've got, it looks like 4 participants now who aren't on the members of the steering group. So this conversation will be driven by you. So if you do want to participate, please, show us your video and unmute, because with 4 people, we absolutely don't need to do raise hand function or chat box typing. We can certainly talk. So we have Catherine, Johanna, Virginie, and Michelle. No, Michelle's not there anymore. I figured as soon as I asked for the video to be on, she'd leave. So we now have 3. So Catherine, Virginie, and Johanna. You just saw Jay's presentation. He's going to put up that last slide. Jay, can you get that up? Now, is there anything in there that you want to use this time to talk about?
For me, it's more about, it's true that the definition of the decision tree, it could be different for different people. So it could be interesting to know what are the different definition for those decision tree and what are the expectation of people with that regards. And on the other hand, that's just me, but I just don't know about Slack channels, what it is. I heard about this actually over this workshop things, but I never actually looked at that. I'm not aware of this at all. So anyway,
I would like to hear the answer to that last one as well. So Slack and decision trees, we can certainly address those. Johanna, was there anything that you wanted to delve into further in this session?
Yeah, among those listed, sorry about that. The creation of consultation groups, I think I want to hear more about that. Is it like consultation groups for like working group, for example, in the case of training, would there be a consultation group for that? The reason why I'm asking is that I think that the training working group has identified some of like a training courses that would be nice if it could be developed. And also, I'm sorry if I wasn't able to highlight it in the discussions or in the document, but I think that there's also one important initiative that I understand from Ana Lara and from Claudia, that the OBPS SG working group on training and capacity development is going to improve the existing survey on training and capacity development initiatives. So I thought that it would be nice if the new survey would be able to reflect or integrate some of the discussions that were made by the training and the training working group session during this workshop.
Okay. So we can go through that. I'm just getting everybody's bits down on paper now, and then we'll go through them in a little more depth in a moment. Catherine, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about in this session?
I think I would like to second the Slack channel. I know what it is. I've used it professionally, as well as, you know, for community groups that I'm doing in my spare time. And I can say, even for this working group, I've contacted someone via Slack with a direct message and they got no response. And then I sent her an email and said, I contacted you. And she said, oh, I didn't realize. So my experience with Slack is that it's completely useless. People don't seem to, sorry, a bit honest, but it doesn't seem to be very, it doesn't seem to be very good for communicating because it's cumbersome, in my opinion. So that's my experience with Slack. But I definitely want a way of keeping in touch. So the reason I partook in this workshop is that I wrote one of the QC documents for IMOS, and Johannes Carstensen, when I approached him about the Frontiers journal, said, why don't you try and raise this, elevate it to a best practice guide? And as an early career researcher, I am not well enough connected to the, in my case, particle flux experts in the field. So it's a bit of a daunting task to go out and say to all these experts, can you read this and can you say whether you like it or not? So that's sort of where I'm at. And so a way to communicate with people is definitely what I would love to find.
Excellent. Okay, so I've written all these down. So we might take the easiest one first, which is Slack as a platform itself, and then we can expand out, Catherine, and talk about some of what you just raised. But Ben, could you give us a quick rundown on what Slack is? And then Jay, maybe you can talk about how we use it in the OBP community.
Can I stop sharing for just a moment so everybody can see each other big?
Yes. I've got the things down now, Jay, so you can stop
Okay.
sharing. All good.
And of course, there is that side-by-side view in the view options with screen sharing where you can use a slider to adjust things. So that's a nice trick if you learn that one. Yeah, I mean, I can say a little bit about Slack in general and how you access it for the workspace we set up for the workshop, for anybody who wasn't aware just how to get into it. And I could talk a little bit about your experience, Catherine. You know, Slack, the reason that we selected it is because there were some cohorts that were big fans. We also knew ahead of time there were some folks who didn't like it, who'd had experience with it for one reason or another. They didn't love it. So we didn't want to mandate it for everybody. And then about 160 people, I think, have joined our Slack workspace versus almost 700 that registered for the workshop. I think not everybody even knew that it was there or how to get to it. It's true that sometimes, you know, you have to, for it to be valuable to you, you have to be working with somebody else who's committed to using it and paying attention to it. And if they don't, well, yeah, that's a problem. But, you know, it is a giant company. It has had enormous uptake worldwide. And so clearly when you have a group that wants to use it, it's offering some value to many of them, or you know, it wouldn't have been on the offering here. And you know, it was designed for small groups, really, originally, for teams to work together and to manage a whole stream of different communications that would, you know, the email just and text messaging really didn't handle well. And so that's what's nice about it. I don't know if it's worth my doing a quick tour of what we have, but I think the one thing I want to do is show people how to get into it if you're not in it already. I think that makes sense, which will just take 1 second. So I'll just share my screen here and take you over to the Kiko chat space. So presumably, you got here because you've been on this page quite a bit, and it's right here, Slack info. If you click that tab, it will bring up this little document. And so this link here will either set you up to join the Slack workspace, add yourself to it, or if you're already a member, it opens it up in a browser. And then once you get there, there's a key info page, and we're there to help. There's a help channel. There's lots of people who can help you get oriented if you needed that. So again, yes, pluses and minuses, but for handling complex communications in a group, it really does offer some benefits. Can I also just show the one thing that people, probably even fewer people know about, which is how to use it, how to send an email through Kiko Chat. So that's actually in the landing page. We're inside of the workshop event right here, but you can get back out through this little blue arrow to this page, which you will probably see when you click your link to log in, and then you click here to participate in the workshop. But if you go up here to the menu in the top left and click that, here's members. And from there, you can search for any particular member. And then go to their profile. And here's this little button, write an email to them. And this will go to the email that they use to register. Now, it'll come from Kiko Chat, but it will give them your email. And if you reply, it'll come back to your email directly, and then you'll be directly connected. So there's still an issue that maybe it goes to spam, gets caught in some filter. But this is a way, without our having to share an email list with everybody, that in theory you can get into one-on-one email exchanges with people. And so maybe that's good enough for now. I'll stop.
Yeah, that's good for the purposes, I think, of this workshop, Ben. So thank you. Listen, I'm going to be honest here and say I've never used Slack. I just didn't want to have another password and another way of communicating because I'm already feel like I'm inundated. So I need to ask the other members of the steering group here, maybe Jay and Francoise, if she's lurking in the background, or Pauline, if you could maybe talk a bit more about how we might use Slack more broadly over the next few years in the ocean best practice community.
I can say something.
You use it? Oh, good.
Oh, yes, I do. So I actually do like it, but someone in the IMOS community that could help you as well are the glider group. They use it to plan all their glider deployments, and also to plan the marine heat wave deployments. And it goes real time. Basically, you know what's happening real time, and that's the nice thing of Slack. So you can see all the conversation and everything that is happening in there in real time. And you just give access to particular members in one group, in a little group within Slack, and you can just go backwards and forwards as opposed to filling in your inbox with emails. So that's the nice thing of Slack. It's outside your inbox, so you're not saturating it, and you can basically have real-time conversations if you want in there, like a chat. Basically, it's a chat.
So it's like WhatsApp,
you can
but
share like
professional.
videos, you can share images, you can, yeah.
It's a bit like a kind of messenger or WhatsApp things, and so where people actually join into groups. It's not an open forum where everybody can see that you need to be a member.
They invite you into the group. And
there are channels that organize the different threads, right? Or the different conversations, each of which can have a little reply thread that spins off of it. So there's a channel for every working group. And there are other channels, and more can easily be created. Anytime there's a group of people that really wants to have an in-depth, set of communications on a subject, you can create a channel for it. So it helps to organize the conversations that way, and in a way that just text or Messenger or WhatsApp really can't handle. It's also very easy to move among workspaces. So if you get used to using it and you run it as an app, and you find several different initiatives are all using Slack, then you're paying attention to it for lots of them, and it becomes quite easy to keep track of things.
So kind of expanding out to what Catherine had been talking about networking properly and finding the people that can help her take her standard or method to a best practice. Is Slack one of the, I guess, priority ways to do this, or is the OBPS forum the way to do it, or is just getting involved in the steering group and that kind of thing? What's the best way? Jay, you're muted if you're talking. Yep.
Who do you want to answer that?
I think I was kind of opening that to the steering group. So Pauline, Anna, and you.
Okay.
Just, you know, she's early career. She wants to take her standard to the next level, her onto IMOS QC that she developed. Then how does she do that? How does she network with the right people over a sustained period of time?
Well, I think Catherine's already on the path of submitting to OBPS. Already has put in a record. It hasn't gone through yet because, as you know, there's a query with Natalie about DOIs, but it will. And I have to say that a number of people have used OBPS as a sort of review platform. They've deposited it, then called on colleagues or their community and saying, I've put it in there, you know, have a look at it and give me comments on it. I mean, it's as simple as that. The other thing, Catherine, that what it will do is give you some statistics. You'll start to see people downloading, and we have some fantastic, I'm not going to quote them now, but we have some fantastic statistics on people who upload and then within a few days, you know, hundreds. We're up to sort of thousands within a month. So I think that's a benefit to get that sort of feedback as well. So I would encourage you to continue, but I say there is a small problem for you with IMOS, which Anna knows because Anna, I think, in a sense, instigated it. So let's take that offline.
Stop the
Pauline just
recording.
laid down some smack on her.
No, what did I instigate it? I missed it.
Not depositing because DOIs are issued.
Yeah. Let me add
yeah.
a couple of other things then, Catherine. We've been talking with, you're doing QC, basically quality control is, okay. We've been talking with Mark Bushnell, who's been doing CARTOD, and that's basically uncertainty quantification. He's going and talking about having a forum. In what we view as the forums are two benefits. If you have questions, people will answer it, but it's also ways to get mentoring of senior people and begin to make networks. And so if Mark, as his working group, sets up a forum under our Ocean Best Practice System construct, then this is an opportunity to work together. And there's also the work that Cora's been doing, Cora Hurstman, who has been working our early career ocean professional group. And that's going eventually, we believe, to become engaged with formally with the OBPS. And so it's an entry point, and we don't quite know how it works. So let's talk together right now about how should that work. I would give you a skeleton and you tell me, all of you, tell me what you think. Within OBPS, we have a structure of a steering group, but we don't have formal working groups at the moment. We have work packages that have tasks to be carried out, but under that, we normally would want to have teams of doing things, whether that's in ethics, whether it's in quality control, and Mark is talking about one for quality control. This is a way to engage with the Ocean Best Practice System and therefore a much broader community. Again, a networking opportunity and the ability to work with teams. Do you think, and now I'm looking at all of you, the idea of working groups within the Ocean Best Practice System for your particular areas makes sense to you?
I guess it depends on how big your field is. The particle flux expert group is maybe not as large as others. So if it's a very broad uncertainty discussion, I may or may not find or might not be able to contribute as much. But I still would like to be involved in that. It's just a question of finding the right people maybe in such a group.
Good.
And Jay, I think we talked about this last year about, you know, we've got the steering group and we've got the working groups within that, but we don't have another layer. We have what we call the community, but that's quite vague. So maybe each working group could have people within it underneath it that maybe don't sit on the steering group committee, but are certainly involved in this kind of almost subcommittee. And that, I think if it was consistent among all the working groups or all the themes, and then we had an ECOP one as well, that might be quite a nice way of kind of unifying the community in a more formal framework.
Good. Perhaps we ought to just clarify terms, because right now, OBPS has work packages. And the working groups support the needs and maybe some of the missions or investigations that a work package would have. So it's a natural process. We're not creating another layer per se, but groups that come together to address a particular issue for a finite duration. And then they might, change their direction or something, but it gives people a chance to grab onto something and to complete it.
Yeah, sorry, I got work packages and working groups confused. That's my fault.
Okay.
We are also trying to create a formal structure outside the steering group, but within the OBPS network, if you like, and actually give people titles. If they do work, if they contribute, then they would be an OBPS associate or an ambassador or an advocate. I mean, we're looking at how we can bring people in and actually be able to list their relationship with OBPS in any of their sort of personal profiles and things like that. Once we've done the individual level, we're looking at organization relationships and possibly the communities. And we've already heard that ECOP is one of those that might be an early discussion. So we're thinking of trying to formalize relationships with the community outside of SG, because the SG can't be thousands of people, but we do know that we do need the community to support us and help us and guide us, actually, to give us that advice on the way forward. So we're looking at that very seriously, and it is an agenda item in the SG in October, which I think will be voted on very enthusiastically. I can't believe they're not. But how do you feel about that in a sense of becoming an OBPS advocate, or an ambassador labeled as such in a sense? Do you like that formality?
So Johanna, you were the one that originally had asked to talk a bit about how to integrate these discussions from the working groups into kind of a more formal network or framework. So do you feel that would be a good way to do it, to have these ambassador roles?
Well, first of all, I think with regards training, the idea of having like professionals who are involved or in charge of their training or capacity development initiatives in their own organization or in their own groups would be very helpful if they would be involved in the working group, or working group who's helping in the work packages, if I got it right. So yeah, I think that I agree with that idea of including or opening the OBPS community to those professionals who are specifically interested in different working packages. I think that that's going to be very useful, especially in training, and especially if we want to understand what kind of training or capacity development are there, are currently existing, and learning about their own best practices and exchanging knowledge about their lessons learned, for example. Now, regarding the formality of the structure, there was actually, I remember in one of our session, was that in the session or one participant actually contributed some inputs in the discussion through email, suggesting a similar structure of, but not really like a OBPS advocate or OBPS ambassador. He's asking more about whether OBPS has plans for like establishing itself as an academic society, which is like more very formal, I would say. But yeah, he has good ideas about this. His rationale is that it's one of the initiatives that would entice young professionals like him to be more involved in the community and in the work. So I thought that was somehow in line with what we are discussing.
But don't professional societies have membership fees? I would think that would be a big turnoff for early career.
Yeah, he even went that far. He
Yeah.
even went that discussing about the membership fees, and I was like, yeah, that's a good idea, but I think it's quite too far from what's
Well, right now it's
happening.
free.
That's right, yeah. And isn't it good? Because even the website was free. So yeah, and I think with the principle of accessibility and access to opportunities, sometimes yeah, paying huge membership fees actually deters the participation of, especially of those who don't have much resources.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the Slack channel, and then more broadly about how to keep in touch with the networks and how to kind of have a more formal framework to integrate those discussions that we've had already from the working groups during this workshop. And then there were just two more, so I might jump to Vinny and Catherine. Actually, you wanted to talk, I think, about the decision trees and how we might go about scoping and then maybe developing some of those, doing some trial ones or some guinea pigs. So I might open it back up to you two to just kind of drive that. So Vinny, I think you wanted to talk a bit about the decision tools, decision trees.
Yeah, it's basically what is the expectation there? Is that they're going to be, yeah, every group's going to create their own decision tree, but it was kind of like clear to me before what Jay mentioned, but yeah, that actually people could have like different definition about this and different expectations. So it's true that whether you use that just for data mining or just for kind of structuring your standard operation procedures or best practice, or if it's just okay, within a best practice we need to implement a decision tree, or I don't know. I'm actually just like putting this back to you for some answers there.
So Jay, when you compiled the recommendations from the working groups, were there clear ones that jumped out as, I guess, easy wins, low-hanging fruit, trial decision trees that we could scope and develop?
Yeah, there were a number that were mentioned. One I said earlier was sargassum, and think of decision trees as really method descriptions. I mean, let's bring it down to basics. Independent of where you apply it, it's how you walk through a process, how you decide to use this or that. And if you use that, then if you go on to the next step, which are the 2 or 3 choices, and you just keep going through. And that's what they call it, a tree. It's a branching of options that you go through. And we're using it, Françoise is leading a group where we're using it in economics to decide the impacts of environmental information on society and decision-making. So it's not only in the research areas that we're normally thinking of, it's well beyond, and it's a well-developed field. So given that it's a process, there are a number of applications for this process concept. One is for a person who has to take care of a flood. The flood's coming into the city, and he or she has to decide, well, if these streets get closed, how do I route the people in different directions to get them away, etc. It's a methods thing. For the best practice area, it's if I want to use, if I have 5 best practices, how do I make the decision which one? And then once I pick that one, how do I know what else is connected to it? Because a best practice is not an isolated phenomenon. And then for the sargassum, and Rachel, this is the one that we're specifically actually in discussion now. They want to have people who are having the plans coming up on the beach. And what are the processes I do to make society or to minimize the impact on society? So that's another type of decision tree. First, I decide how much the quantity is. Then I look at the wins. That's the next thing in the decision tree. Then I look at, for example, the use of the beach. How important is it to the local people? And from that, I decide how to then take a response. I could go on, but have I answered your question? Because it's a good question that we're just exploring.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think that's important that we're in the scoping phase, I guess, of what we could do with this. Sorry, go ahead, Anna.
Well, I think it's also, I mean, we could help facilitate, but that's something that the community, I mean, we're not sort of implementing those processes. Is the community that will be, you know, producing those decision tools and will enable that. So one other community that it's already on the path of developing theirs is the ocean cabinet system. So we can basically facilitate that process and then provide the visibility that they need. And that's a methodological of you know, what sensors, what equipment you can use, and what type of questions will be answered with those.
Yeah.
So it's just a you know, a process that, as Jay mentioned, so it really can apply to, you know, anything the community thinks is suitable.
So
Yeah, I agree. Actually, this is a great idea, and that would help in converging, I guess, best practice from different communities, and so being able to have this core, and then like having this range for this type of environment or this place or this specific region. Yeah, that's that okay. I see. Yeah, now better in that regard.
So hopefully we'll have some more to say about that after the steering group meeting, with some more tangible progressions on it. And maybe we'll keep you in the loop, Vinny, since you've expressed some interest in it. It's always good to have new blood. I've noticed Mark's just joined us. So Mark is also a member of the Ocean Best Practice System Steering Group. Mark, we've got a very small group here today. Actually, now the steering group members outnumber the normal people. So we're just having a bit of a discussion where we're working through some of the issues that Catherine, Johanna, and Vinny wanted to talk about. And I think we're getting towards the home stretch of that. Did we want to talk any bit more about the decision trees, or is everybody quite happy with how that went? No? Okay, so the last topic that the three of you had raised was from Johanna. She was talking about, I think we kind of covered this a bit, talking about creation of consultation groups, particularly I think for capacity development and training from your end. Johanna, did you want to just kind of introduce what you were hoping to get from that a bit more, or have we already covered it?
Well, from my end, I think it's more of like a clarification, maybe. For example, there is an organization is interested in developing a training related to OBPS, and or some of the participants we had in the session would like to continuously involve themselves in line with the OBPS efforts in developing trainings and other capacity development initiatives. Where is their entry point, or is there will there be a group, a consultation group specifically for training and capacity development that they can approach in that case?
I think that's actually a good point across all the working groups, is where's the entry point? If you're new to the community, how do you get in? How do you get involved? How do you network yourself in? So I think we as the steering group need to be conscious of that, that it might not be easily found or known, and we need to, that's more of a communication exercise.
So let me.
Oh, hi, Frank. Sorry, Frank's here as well. So we've got somebody else on the steering group in this. Frank, we've got just
hello.
a few. We've got a few people that are raising some issues that we're just talking through.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was watching some horrible brawl.
So the debate as well, huh?
Me too, yes.
Called a debate, huh?
So
I take it was you either got bored or tired of it, or the debate finished.
Well, it finished, but it was unpleasant.
It was never going to be pleasant. All right, so back to Johanna's question.
Let me try and answer Johanna's question by an example. Johanna, you had in your recommendations the idea of a virtual reality as potentially usable for training. This is a skill base and a skill set that most ocean observers don't really have hands-on experience with, nor the technical knowledge. But if we wanted to go along with that and take that direction, we might form a small working group with expertise in those areas. And that would be a working group that would then work with the training capacity development work package. And so this is an example of a working group where we decide we want to do something, we need to bring in the expertise, we use the expertise, and eventually it'll disband or it'll continue in some other way.
Yeah, that's very useful, Jay. I think that's how, yeah, the best way to proceed with that. And not only, I think, in the virtual reality, for example, there was also some discussions on the making citizen science training available, also looking at the ethics courses as a training, either as a training course with well-defined learning goals, or other structures. So I think that it would be really useful to have that, like a body that we know who to approach when concerns like this.
And Johanna, your comment raises a really good point too about linkages. So even if we do get these discrete working groups that become quite robust and active, we need to make sure that we're drawing those links between ethics, capacity building, outreach, all of that, because they're not separate disciplines. They're very much interconnected. And so that's something we also need to be attentive to as we're building a more formal framework. It's morning there, isn't it? Because your roosters are going nuts.
Sorry. Yes.
That's okay. I love it.
I'm trying to mute my phone because these roosters, they keep crowing, like even I'm in the morning session or in the evening session.
Oh, they crow at night too. You've got some nice ones.
Well, we had that midnight session, I think, around 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and they woke up quite early. So
that's good. It gives us a global feel because it's just mid-afternoon here. So it's good. Does anybody else have anything to say about, I guess, those kind of frameworks and consultation groups and that kind of connectivity? Okay, I might open it up to see if there's anything else we want to talk about while we're here. We've covered a few things. Anna's been kindly taking notes in the background, so we will have some structure to this when we're done. So I'll give everybody a chance to kind of unmute and say any other comments or any other issues they want to talk about. Or Mark and Frank can just give us a rundown on the debate.
Let me just ask Mark, there was a question. Catherine is doing some work in quality control in IMOS, and we were talking about whether the work you're doing in CARTOT is relevant to hers. Interested if the two of you can compare notes and see whether, if you create a forum, is that something she would want to participate in?
I think the short answer is yes. CARTOT is in a time of transition from a very clear effort to create quality control manuals, and now we're moving to address larger quality assurance measures, and so that's why I'm interested in ocean uncertainty quantification and so forth. And between ocean best practices and CARTOT and the U.S. CLIVAR ocean uncertainty, it's a wide open field for quality control and quality assurance. So yes, very much so.
Yeah, I guess all I can say to that is that Tom Troll, he's retiring, but he was I guess, my line manager at the time when I was writing this document, and he definitely pointed to Quartod first as a decision-making process for the manual, and to look through those steps. It didn't quite apply so much to the particle flux data that we're using, but yeah, I definitely am aware of it.
So what's different is that we've written 13 manuals now, and we've sort of exhausted the obvious guidance and emerging technologies and things that are becoming real time that aren't real time now. The onus is on them to create the Quartod manuals. We're willing to help, but it's a transition, and so we'd love to work with anybody who wants to create their own quality control manuals.
I just joined the Slack channel, and Jay was saying that there may be, more formally a group being formed. Is that the best way to keep in touch?
Yeah, there's two focuses or foci, whatever the word is, and one is the uncertainty quantification, and the other is the continuation of quality control manuals.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to go to the uncertainty quantification of sediment traps just yet.
Okay.
I can recommend not.
It's incredibly challenging, and
Yes.
everybody knows it needs to be done, but it's just almost impossible to do. So it's yeah.
So yeah, the document I'm talking about was more daring to give flags to the data we did produce.
Okay. And boy, the whole issue of flags, that in itself is a conundrum, and I would love to help you with that.
Thank you.
So there, we've got an uncertainty kind of quality control working group set up now.
I had a question before, and I don't want to drag this out too long, but if I'm going to make some comments tomorrow about how this process can feed into the decade, the UN decade of ocean science for sustainable development. Did you talk about that tonight? And how the OBPS?
No, we didn't talk about the decade at all. It's been quite a small group, so we didn't get there. Really happy for you to talk about it a bit, Frank.
Well, I'm hoping you give me ideas. I think, of course, we won't have a successful decade unless we have application of best practices and interoperability. But I was hoping that, I don't know if you will be in the meeting tomorrow, maybe not. But if you have any suggestions, anything that you would like to include in the recommendations, I'd like to hear that.
I guess sorry, go ahead, Anna.
Sorry, I'm sorry, there's some noise going on at the moment. I guess one of the things that where we could link is through the training as well, because that's, knowledge transfer, and it's a very big drive in the decade. So that could be one thing. And basically the enabling, the communities to come together and, form groups, discuss. It's all about ocean, I guess. So, but yeah, I think my mind is going through the transfer of knowledge, transfer of enabling, technology transfer and enabling training.
So
Yes,
I was gonna ask Frank if you could pose the question, what's the strategy for the ocean best practice community to engage with the decade? Do we want to have kind of our own separate ocean best practice, activity or group pitched to the decade, or do we want to spend our efforts weaving that into the existing projects and activities that are going on? Or do we want to do both?
We want to do both, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a very clear picture of the process yet. We know that they're going to open a call for proposals for programs as actions in the next couple of weeks or so, but that doesn't include us because we're part of the IOC as a ocean best practices group. And so there seems to be some mechanism for IOC programs to participate and propose programs, but it's kind of a separate parallel process, and we haven't learned exactly what that is. Maybe they are still trying to define that themselves. So I think that we need to do both to the extent that we can, work with whoever we know is going to propose programs and be part of that, but also continue this in behind the scenes. We've been trying to convince the people that are writing these calls for proposals and the strategies, as you know, Rachel, that we want to see best practices explicitly called for in the call for proposals. And to what extent they're doing that is not completely clear, but we definitely want to be present in that process.
And we're sort of, for example, in the training side of things, we have Link and with this group that is going to put forward a prospectus for training. So we have maintained engagement, and that will be Alexis and Brian.
Yeah. Right, but I don't know who else is going to propose things. I don't know if there will be competing groups. I mean, that's about the only group that I know that has basically a prospectus that they're trying to mature to put in as a proposal.
Isn't I can't remember her name. Is it Nadia? She went to a few workshops in the previous year. She's Italian. She's putting in a coastal prediction
That's
proposal.
Right. Yeah.
Nadia Pinardi.
Yes. Yeah. She's putting in something.
Yeah. The deep sea folks and Lisa Levin are probably putting in something.
Yeah, they definitely.
Guessing air-sea interface may try, but that's treated as a technology, so it's not as broad.
I heard rumbles on a deep sea mining one as well, which might be interesting from a best practice side of things.
Yeah, so the question is what's going to be accepted as a program as opposed to projects, and they have like 5 categories of actions, and right now they're going to solicit for programs that can organize sort of umbrella programs that can organize different groups, not narrow focused groups.
So do you think we should be an umbrella program, Frank? I mean, we do have the potential to link.
We should do both, but we are not in a position to put in a proposal this round.
We're IOC.
Yeah, and I don't know when that's going to open for the IOC programs. I don't know, Pauline, if you've heard anything more.
Yeah, you know, Rachel, I would answer you in the following way. Programs have to integrate multiple projects, and the use of best practices and interoperability, which it supports, is a major activity, but it doesn't sound like a program like a coastal, measurements or ocean bottom or things like that. So are we then projects under the various programs? I think it could well be. And that feels like a more comfortable thing in addition to our IOC position going in. So it's a personal view.
Yep. Now I'll be keen to hear what people say in the larger plenary tomorrow or today. I don't know what time it is for you guys, but it is tomorrow for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, did Vinny, Johanna, or Catherine, did you guys have anything you wanted to chime in about the decade? I'll assume if you're on mute, then.
I think we're firmly embedded in it, no matter how you parse it. We can't not be a part of it.
Yep, I agree.
So
okay, well, it's
a that you can't, like OBPS cannot be part of the decade.
No, it must be a part of the decade.
But this round, the proposals being called for, we're ineligible for because we're part of UNESCO loosely.
All right.
Right. So we're basically already in it, and it's just that they want to make a call for proposals from organizations that are already part of the IOC, but they don't want to give the impression that it's an incestuous process. Let's put it that way.
Even though it might be.
I don't think so.
Okay, we're at 1 o'clock now. Now we did have until 1:30, but I am happy to be guided by the group if we want to cut it a little bit early because we do have quite a small group, or we can keep going. So I will open it up. I guess if anybody wants to keep going, chime in now. Okay. Anna's going to write up the notes for that. So if anybody has a burning desire to see them, I'm sure she'll share them because again, it is such a small group. And I don't think any of, I know at least Vinny, Anna, Catherine, and I will probably not be at the 4 a.m. plenary session because it's 4 a.m. for us on a Saturday.
Good.
Or no, it's 4 a.m. tomorrow.
It's
I don't
1
know,
o'clock
Johanna,
for
where you
us.
are. Yep, okay. So yeah,
That'll be
I don't
Saturday
think
someplace.
many of us won't be there, but we look forward to hearing what you discussed, probably in a larger group.
But
So
are
until
your
then-
notes going to be available? Perhaps I think it starts 10:30 our time.
Yeah, Anna
East-
can
East
send those.
Coast.
Anna, can you send those to everybody on this list? Probably bar Ben, unless he's super interested. Do you have a list of everybody that's here?
No, I don't.
I'll take. Listen, I'm going to take a screenshot real quick. Nobody leave. Just hold on while I
Only-
screenshot.
Yeah. And yeah,
Um,
with the screenshot, I think we'll know who's here. And then I'll finish the notes and put them, I think, in the Google Drive. Or how do I get the notes in, Pauline? So, or I can send them to you, Ben, and you can put them in Google. Thank you.
Okay, I've just screenshotted the participants, Anna, so I'll send that to you so you can make sure everybody gets the link.
Will the notes tell me what's so funny about uncertainty quantification for sediment traps?
Sure, I'll get on that.
You don't
right
want
away.
to. You don't want to know. You don't
Just
want to.
ask that at your next party, Ben. It'll get sure to get the conversation going.
Somehow there's something there. Yes.
I commend you all for tolerating these oddball hours. I think it's amazing.
But
It's
it's,
not oddball for me. It's 1 p.m.
Yeah.
if somebody can send that by mail, I would appreciate that because I have no idea where the Google Drive is.
Well, I was just about to say I'm going to send it to Anna to tell her which folder to put it in, and I'll copy you, Frank, as well. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can just give you the link so you access it through that link.
Okay,
Of
great.
course, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Yes.
you, Anna, for taking notes. And thank you to those of you who missed part of the debate for this. And thank you to the 3 non-steering group members, Catherine, Vinny, and Johanna, who participated. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. It was
Bye.
a competition
Bye.
against Trump.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.